Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.
Hi, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm David.
And I'm Sherie.
We are excited today. We want to address something that we received online from a listener. And so they requested a topic that we have talked about, but in a different kind of a way, which we appreciate hearing back and are glad that this podcast is helpful and our listeners have been benefited. And so we love feedback, we love input, we love questions, and this was one of them.
I think we've been talking about this concept for a really long time between the two of us and trying to pull it apart and trying to figure out the nuances around it, which is one of my favorite things to do. But I think going over this particular comment and question has really kind of solidified some thoughts that we've had and gotten it started. So I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being something that we talk about for a little while, that we have a number of episodes on, because I don't even think we can even begin to start describing, start really getting into it, and really all of what comes as a result of it and what's happening and what's going on with all the processes. But so let's just get into first this the comment, the email that we got, and just talk about it in general, because I think it's something that we hear a lot of. And so we received an email about betrayal trauma and about betrayal trauma over long periods of time.
Right.
And one of the things that we heard a lot of in this email is a lot of the long-term pain, a lot of the trying different things and things not working out the way that they're hoping, a lot of unmet expectations, a lot of ways that other people said to handle problems, or that we typically will hear from religious leaders, from, friends and family. And I think, I think we should talk about some of these specific things, or things that people in betrayal trauma tend to feel, or that we hear a lot about. And then we're going to spend several episodes probably getting into some of the deep conceptual things that are happening that are really the underlying issue of the dis-ease in the relationship. The dis-ease.
Dis-ease, right, which is a great way to break it down.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot in this email, but one of the concepts was, it's really helpful nowadays because of how much information is out there about betrayal trauma, and now we have a word for it.
Right.
And we can identify it, and women can feel like this is a thing. It's a real thing. Mm-hmm. Other women feel this. It's been happening for a long time. And so were you to, let's say, discover something now, there would be a lot more help than there has ever been before.
Right.
And so the spirit of this email, in my understanding, was Sherie and I's understanding, what happens when it's been decades of you're struggling with the symptoms, but you don't know what to do with them. You don't know what they are. You don't, it's not accepted. It's not understood that this is a thing.
Right.
kind of like how PTSD for a really long time, you go back to, World War One is when they really started to see this, and we loosely kind of called it shell shock. And over time, with more experience and more research and just the field growing of psychology and therapy, now we've arrived at PTSD, and we understand it a lot better than we have before, and we treat it a lot better than we ever have before.
Right.
And that's absolutely what's happening with something like betrayal trauma, where, decades ago, this would be probably identified just as depression or,
Right.
Mental illness, but not named.
Yeah. Or
not
you
identified.
just not being able to handle normal things in life.
Yeah.
Right.
And
You're
so
just deficient in some way.
Yeah. And so long-term effects is kind of the, what do we do with that? What do we do about that? And I'm glad that we have the help now, but there are, like this person shares, a lot of people who this has been kind of where they've been trapped or stuck for 20, 30, 40 years.
Right. Right. Yep. You've just been kind of dealing with it and trying to get by, trying to figure out what do I do and how do I show up, and nothing seems to work. And
even if I've got help now,
right.
It's been this way so long, I feel maybe, I don't want to say
a little
irreparably
hopeless.
damaged, but yeah, like, okay, these things are helpful, but I'm overcoming so much of it for so long that, tools and things can help, but it probably feels just much, much deeper.
Right. Right. Yeah. And some of the things that, we notice with that, we've noticed with even people who haven't gone through it quite that long, right? Like all of a sudden, boundaries are acceptable, right? Some of these things that I think just in a general level weren't really acceptable 20, 30, 40 years ago, but especially for women, less acceptable to have boundaries, and maybe less acceptable to have boundaries in different ways, probably for men and women, right? But trying to understand what that concept is and being allowed to have space and being allowed to say this doesn't feel okay for me. Right.
Being allowed to, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't as acceptable. And this is kind of where I think Sherie and I have arrived at, because we've been talking about this, and there's so much that goes into this. And I don't know that we can start to unpack it unless we talk about kind of what we call maybe traditions of our society. And this is why she said this is probably going to be a bit
Many
because this is
many
good for us to
episodes.
think about. Yeah. And,
right. We've literally probably been talking about this for a couple of years.
Right.
And like, okay, what's going on here? What's underneath? What's happening? And so I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot is anytime we have something where in the past we've been on one extreme, and if you've been one of my clients, you will probably, I'm doing this visually with my hand right now, and you will recognize this as I will often draw a pendulum up on the board, right? And we'll be at one side of that. So you can imagine that, just one side up on the edge. And we can do this individually, but we want to talk about it more societally. And we've been up on this one edge societally wise. So in this case with boundaries, right? Or a lot of these other things, like you're not allowed to talk about hard things, right? You just kind of shove it under the rug. You have the stoic, right? Like look at the baby boomer.
It's strength not to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you just put up with stuff. So you're not really setting boundaries. You're not really talking about things. We have a lot of things that were just societally believed and that was how you did it, and you were actually like a strong, good person if you did it that way, right? So yeah, it was reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. So we start to understand how that's actually harmful and damaging, right? And a lot of times what happens is we swing to the other side as we're trying to figure out where, which is again why I always say healthy living is a balanced living, where we're trying to find where the healthy, balanced living is.
Right.
And this is super common. And so now you will see, we have this loyal, just suck it up, put up to shut up. You just have to like show up in relationships, show up in family, show up in all these things.
Like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's just the right thing to do. And then now you see we have this, cancel culture, cut all the toxic people out of your life kind of a situation. And it's been something I've been watching in this sort of morbidly fascinated sort of way, because I'm noticing how damaging it is that we're showing up on this other end. And people are feeling like it's this really great thing.
Right.
But it's also actually quite damaging.
Yeah.
And so what we're noticing is a trend in betrayal trauma with this pattern,
right,
as well, where we have a way that it has been no boundaries. You just put up, you're told your whole life that it's your responsibility to manage his sexuality, and that if you just had more sex with him, then everything would be fixed. Where it's your job to be in charge of his emotional state, because men don't have emotional states. And then eventually that will mean that you will be seen as good enough and worthy enough for him to fulfill your needs and connect with you emotionally and show up well.
Is the hope, right?
Right.
If I can show up well enough, long enough, eventually, if I have unmet needs, they'll just become met.
Yes.
And
by
so,
then.
At some point, yeah.
They will like love me enough that they will change behavior, do different things, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the sort of expectation, right, that we've lived with or believed based on lots of, again, those belief systems, those traditions of society. And some of those have religious overtones and some of them don't. And the swing that we're seeing a lot of times, or that we're definitely seeing in certain circumstances, is to take all of these coping skills, all of these great new things, and taking them to an extreme on the other side. So boundaries, explosions, but which can happen as you're trying to learn to set boundaries, but that never calm down, that stay in that extreme space, that the micromanaging spaces of what's going on for the addiction, and not being able to like let go and reconnect and heal.
Which makes, again, perfect sense. So
Exactly.
Sherie cited an example that we see a lot where used to be you just put up with everything. You put up with the family members. You put up with pretending everything is fine. You put up with all the things because you're protecting the family or the reputation of the family or all this. And now, and that wasn't healthy.
Right.
And now what we're seeing, you could say the other end of that spectrum, you swing from one extreme to the other. Well, the extreme now that we see a lot, and you probably do too, is to cut people off. And we use phrase like narcissists or toxic people.
Or borderline,
borderline, yeah. We're going to cut these toxic people out of our lives. And so I have a lot of clients who come in and they haven't spoke to parents in years, for example. And so in an attempt to have more of a voice, you could say, we
Right.
have only our voice at times and have now severed relationships instead of finding, this balance or this medium,
Yeah.
which,
It becomes like nothing is about you to it's only about
right,
you. Right? And I think and I hesitate to even say it that way because I don't think that that's the intent that
right,
we have when we do it. And I say we because I think I've done it in different aspects of my life at different times. I'm constantly trying to pay attention to that, right?
yeah,
And just even before the session we were talking about the different ways that we do that, right? And so that's not the intent. We're not trying to make it only about us and only about our voice, but that's what ends up happening
right,
when we're so focused on what we quote unquote need in order to feel comfortable that the relationship and the other person doesn't get to be seen.
right. And who knows? I don't know. Perhaps there's a natural process in healing where you almost have to kind of, because you think about an actual pendulum, you can't bring the ball up to one side that's hanging on a string and let go and it stops in the middle.
Right.
It's
Right.
going to swing to the other side and back and forth, but eventually it will find balance in the middle, but not
Right.
immediately. So it may just be a natural process where, in order for me to come out of this, I don't matter, my voice isn't important, I have to almost be, I'm the only thing that matters for a time, or
Yeah.
I'm going to be overly sharing or overly expectant. And perhaps that's just the process.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think, I talk with my clients a lot about the physical concept of balance, right? Which is that's what we're trying to find, healthy balance, right? But you think about that in a physical sense, balance. In talking with an occupational therapist, friend of mine, she said balance is falling. That is the definition of balance. It's that falling and course correcting, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then as we pay attention to what doesn't feel quite right or what's feeling off, back and forth and back and forth, then we get better and better and better at it. And so as an adult, you don't even notice standing up and walking. Like you just don't notice that the micro nuances of adjustment that are made, right? Whereas a toddler
Yeah.
that's learning to walk is all over the place, right? They're really overcorrecting because they're trying to figure out how to do this, right? But the second that you put an average adult on their tiptoe on one foot, right? Suddenly you start noticing that a whole lot more because you don't have a lot of experience finding the balance,
Right.
right? And then you look at, a ballet dancer and they can be on their tiptoe on one foot for 10 minutes straight. You wouldn't even notice that if you only were watching a video of them from their waist up, you would have no idea that they were only on one foot, right? So I think you're right. I think it is a process of learning and figuring out, and sometimes you don't even know what that too far is until you've stepped over it. And then you're like, oh, that doesn't feel super comfortable. Let's try the other. Okay, wait, no, I know I'm not supposed to do that much, so maybe I'll try doing it a little less that much, right?
Which is tough, right? Because anything at all, having any voice at all after a long period of time of not, is going to feel right. And
Yes.
you can take that all the way to an extreme where, again, it's kind of yours is the only voice and it will still feel better
Right.
than no voice at all.
Yeah.
And so,
Either that or it'll feel way scarier.
yeah, definitely scary too. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this space where we are just kind of figuring it out. And so as we're starting to talk about this concept, and I know it sounds super vague because we don't even want to like start hinting at it because it's just going to be so much. But just this concept that as we're starting to heal from addiction, from betrayal trauma, from all of these things, there is more out there. And there's always a way that we can take it to an extreme space or more of an extreme space where we're not really hearing and seeing the balance, and where we're missing some pieces that are going to be critically important in rebuilding relationship.
Right.
And so that's where we want to come to. Like, it makes perfect sense. This is a natural, normal process of things, but it's one that I don't think is being talked about yet. I don't think that we're really catching that we've moved sometimes and in some ways, in some situations, to a more extreme spot. We're missing that piece, and I think it's important because I think that relationships and individual health and healing is suffering.
Right. And it's a tough concept sometimes to consider. It definitely is. And we are very aware of that. And we try, not always successfully, especially me, I'm sure, to kind of describe it and accurately portray it without sounding insensitive or
Victim blaming is a lot of what people hear and feel in these situations.
Yep.
That's not what we're doing.
It's not. It's this really hard, in my heart and soul, is absolutely this core concept of it's not the thing that happens, it's how we respond to it. But if we respond to it in less effective ways, it contributes just as much, maybe more than the thing that happened. And it's so hard, though, if a genuine thing that is terrible has happened, it's hard to talk about our reaction or response to it, because you're still just overwhelmed by the thing itself. And this is I hope this makes sense, because this is a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah.
In therapy, where there's,
I was going to say, it's probably not going to make
feedback.
sense till we really start getting into it, but
And we can ask questions of a client. I think it's an easier process. But on something like a podcast, where it's like you're just listening and there's not back and forth, there's not questions, there's not, hey, can you clarify that particular point? It's more challenging for sure. But I think that's the direction we want to go.
yeah. Yeah. We want to talk about how, just to sum up, in betrayal trauma, especially when it's gone on for a long time, or especially when we have all of these long-term cultural beliefs that push us in one direction, that as we're starting to heal, as we're starting to move forward in understanding, a better understanding of what betrayal trauma is, that it exists, and what to do about it, that the natural response is going to be to swing to the other side of that and potentially land culturally and sometimes individually in spaces that are going to be equally as far from balanced center and equally as damaging and hurtful for us individually and for our relationships. So again, we want to carefully talk about this, and it doesn't just apply to betrayal trauma. This is going to be a main thing of where we're addressing it, but it's something good to consider in general. I think where we might in our own lives, I know it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, have swung too far, or what I'm not seeing clearly about my own belief systems, my own ways, and that's not like religious belief systems. This is like how we do life, right? And how we're showing up that way. And this is what therapy is good for, is someone outside of us being able to see and call us on things. And with this being such a tender and tricky topic, I think a lot of people aren't getting called on it.
Right.
So we're going to start talking about it, and hopefully you can follow us along and listen as we hopefully are able to gently explain this in more detail, and ways that if you feel like you've been doing this process for a long time, or you've been setting boundaries and you've been doing a recovery stuff for a while and things just don't feel like they're getting better, or you don't feel like you're getting more connected to your partner, regardless of which side of this you're falling on, the betrayed or the addicted partner, that perhaps this might be something to consider.
Well, I can't word it any better than that. So please join us on important coming episodes as we dive a little bit more into this with actual, what do we do?
Yep.
Because that's always an important where we arrive at how can I more effectively show up today.
Yeah.
And it helps. So thank you for joining us, and
tune in next time and we'll start jumping down this big long process.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.